Hey folks, today we're going to be looking at focusing a text input in Elm. Because focusing an input influences the browser state rather than just the internal state of the Elm application, we have to look at tasks and commands to see how to do this. In the end, the code is relatively simple, but it's nice just to look at how something like this is done within Elm. Let's take a look.
Okay, so this is a basic Elm App setup. I've used the Create Elm App project to set this up and then added a little bit of CSS just to highlight the input when we add it. The nice thing about the Create Elm App setup is that it will recompile our code whenever we make a change and reload the browser so that we can see it. Our first step is to add an input and button to this page. So if we go and look at the code that the Create Elm App generates for us, we can see that it's a standard init, update, and view setup, and we can change the contents of the view to show an input with type text and a button with just a label for the moment. If we try to compile this, we'll see that it fails because we need to introduce to import a lot more of the HTML modules to keep us well covered. If we now have a look, we'll see the browser's reloaded and we've got our input and focus, and if we click on the input we can see it turns blue when focused. The button doesn't do anything at the moment. In order to get this button to do something, we need to go and add an on-click event to the button. So here we can add on-click, and we want to give it some kind of message to send when it's clicked. So we add this focus input message and we make sure we handle it here. So again, focus input, and for the moment we're going to do nothing. But what we're really interested in is what happens here in this command section of what we're returning when handling this message. If we go back to the browser, we can see that the button still doesn't do anything, so we really want to figure out how to trigger a focus with this. If we go and have a look in the documentation, we can see that the Elm's browser module, and in particular the DOM module within that, has a focus method. This method can be used to focus a DOM node by ID, and it shows us how to go about doing this. We want to pay attention to the fact that this method returns a task rather than a command directly, so we need to figure out how to handle that. If we come back to the code, we can try inserting the suggested method in here. So we've got dom.focus and we want to give it some kind of ID. So we need to add an ID down to the input that we're interested in focusing so that they match up. To make this compile, we're going to have to import the module we're after. So we've got Browser.Dom as DOM, as they recommended in the docs. Now we need to look at the fact that this focus method actually returns a task and not a command. As we can see from the signature, our update function wants a command in the second slot of this tuple, and so we need to turn this task into a command. The way we do this is by using the task.attempt function and providing it with another message that's going to handle the result of that task. So here we can add a new message which is going to deal with this result, and the result we know is either going to have a DOM error or this unit value, which basically means that everything's gone fine and we don't have any more information to share at this time. In order to compile this, we're going to have to import the task module so that that works, and now that we've added a new message here, we're going to have to handle that in our update statement as well. In this case though, we're not that interested in what the result is. We assume it's going to work fine, and so we're just going to do nothing with this message. If we compile that, it's successful, and if we look back at our browser, we can see that when we click on our button, it now focuses the input as we would hope. As a little bit of extra information, we can look at adding a debug.log statement into the update function itself so that we see all the messages that are coming through. And if we look in our console, we can see that when we click on the button, we can see a focus input, and then this result which is saying everything was fine and the focus happened. And if we change this maybe to have a typo in our command, we can see that when it's recompiled and we click focus input, it's going to fail to find this node or this input node by its ID, and therefore it returns an error state instead of the previous OK state. You can also view this message information through the built-in debugger as well if you wanted to.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more.